Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. We got some, not, I guess, technically too many topics to talk about, but one of our topics is really big. Yes, we are talking about that Marvel or Variety Marvel article. But yeah, we have some other stuff to talk about as well, so let's get into the news. First up, we have a trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This is the latest Apes movie. I'm not a fan really of like the old movies. I think as a kid I watched, was it the Matt Damon Apes movie? Was that the one directed by Christopher Nolan or not Nolan, not Nolan, Tim Burton? I remember watching that one, but I don't remember it. I'm mostly a fan of the more newer ones. I think those are fantastic. And this looks really intriguing. It seems like this is now at this point in time, the apes are very much like solidifying their society. And it's like humans are almost primitive at this point in time. It's very interesting. And yeah, it seems like it's going to be about like a just a political factions of apes coming into conflict, which is very very interesting. I'm not entirely sure what the story is exactly, but it still looks great. The visual effects are still like astonishing. It's like, oh, is that an actual ape? Did they manage to train the ape? Oh my gosh! But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued. I really want to watch like the first like official trailer. This is very much a teaser. That sort of explains more of the story. But for now, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be checking that out. And then next up, we got an official trailer for Echo today. This looks fantastic. Uh, Full disclosure, this was not a show that I really cared about. The Hawkeye was bad. Echo wasn't particularly interesting in that show. But I mean, first of all, this is rated TVMA, so that's television's version of R. And you can really tell in this trailer there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of violence. Um, it's very dark, it's very gritty. It feels more akin to a Netflix Marvel show than anything else that they've been doing on Disney Plus. And uh, and you know what else? When I look back at Loki season 1 and the first season of Hawkeye, I think my biggest beefs with that show is that the antagonist just isn't a part of the show until like the last episode. And so like I'm watching the show and it feels like it's just like egg like pulling you along by like, hey, you keep watching Loki season 1 because Kang might show up at the end. Hey, Hawkeye, look, we teased Kingpin. Kingpin's going to be in the last episode, but they weren't built up to be compelling villains throughout the season. So it's like, why should I care about Kang being at the end of Loki season 1 when you haven't built him up to be a compelling villain? Why should I care about Kingpin being at the end of Hawkeye when there's like no relationship between Kingpin and your lead characters? There's no relationship between the two. Just in this trailer alone, I'm pretty sure there was more screen time. I felt like there was more screen time between Kingpin and Maya than there was between Kang and Loki in Loki season 1, or Kingpin and Hawkeye, or even Kate Bishop in Loki season 2, or in Hawkeye. So just from every point of view in terms of the action in this series looks really great. The storytelling, the themes, the relationships, the conflicts in this story seems like a step up from what we saw from Echo and Hawkeye. The antagonist being Kingpin, or although it does seem like there are other antagonists that aren't Kingpin, like they all seem or like Kingpin in this show seems interesting. It looks violent, impactful. The violence feels impactful. It's like, this looks kind of incredible. I am very surprised to be saying this, but this is like suddenly probably my most anticipated Marvel project, because if I'm really thinking about it, it's like Like Deadpool 3, I'm not like the biggest Deadpool fan. I'm also not the biggest like X-Men fan. Like I like those properties well enough, but I'm kind of getting over Ryan Reynolds' style of humor just in general. So I'm not like losing my mind over that one. Captain America: Brave New World, I think it could be interesting, but I feel like I'd have to watch a trailer for that first. Stuff like I don't even know, like yeah, I'm obviously looking forward to this more than Agatha House of Harkness. There's been a lot of trouble with Daredevil, so who knows about that show? Like, of all the projects that we know about and that we've seen stuff about, it's like this is just like here. It looks great. What can I say? I am very, very excited for it. All right, but that's all done with the trailers. Let's get into the news. So first up, it looks like Insomniac and the Wolverine, or the Insomniac Spider-Man game and the Insomniac Wolverine game are in fact going to be in the same universe. It's coming from VGC. So I'm still playing Spider-Man 2. So I elected not to read this article because I have no idea if it's teased in Spider-Man 2 or not. So I only read the headline, and the headline says this: Spider-Man 2 creative director confirms Wolverine exists in the same universe. Cool. I don't know how, or I don't know if it's revealed in Spider-Man 2, but cool. I like that. Sure. Yeah, but I guess I will say I'm okay with there being like shared universe stuff in the same studio. I would only get worried if they try to do a thing where that Square Enix Avengers game and the Eidos Montreal Guardians of the Galaxy game and then the Insomniac Spider-Man game and then the EA or like the Respawn or whatever, somebody's making a Black Panther game from a different studio. Like if all of these games were trying to be interconnected with one another, then I would get a little worried, because I think trying to like tie together narratives between studios, I feel like that could get very messy very quickly. But it's like if Insomniac wants to do their own little Marvel universe, I think that could be interesting. So we'll see how that all plays out, though. All right, next up, we have an update on Daredevil Born Again. It's come from the Hollywood Reporter. Dario Scardipan, whose recent credits include Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, as well as Netflix's Marvel show The Punisher, has been tapped to act as the new showrunner for the series, which is in the midst of a creative overhaul. Additionally, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, the co-directing team behind indie genre thrillers who are coming off of directing episodes of Loki Season 2, have been hired to helm the remaining episodes that will constitute the first season on Disney+. So, cool. They have the showrunner for The Punisher coming on to showrun the show, Daredevil Born Again. That's good, as we talked about last week. The Disney Plus Marvel shows haven't had showrunners. That's obviously baffling. So cool, we have a showrunner. I liked Punisher. I didn't think it was nearly as good as Daredevil, though, so we'll see how that goes. And apparently people are liking Loki Season 2. I actually haven't started watching yet because I've been doing reaction videos. My backlog of TV to catch up on is vast. I am very, 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 very stressed out about it. And I'm also, right now I'm trying to finish Spider-Man 2, so that's taking up a lot of my time, and I don't have time to edit, and it's really stressful. There's way too much content. But anyways, yeah, so I haven't started watching Loki Season 2, but I have heard it's good. But then again, people also like Loki Season 1, and I don't really like Loki Season 1 that much, so we'll see. I don't know. Overall, I'm glad that they're at least starting fresh, coming at it from a new angle, and hey, after watching that Echo trailer, this is probably going to be rated TVMA as well. I don't see how it wouldn't after Echo. Like it would be really bizarre if they gave Echo a TVMA, but not Daredevil. That would be strange. So I'm kind of running with that assumption. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about this Variety article that came out about the state of Marvel. I have broken it up into a bunch of different topics. So we're going to kind of come at it piece by piece. So first up, we're going to talk about the section in the article where they reveal that Marvel is considering doing an OG Avengers movie. All right, so remember this is coming from Variety. Sources say there have been talks to bring back the original gang for an Avengers movie. This would include reviving Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, but the studio hasn't yet committed to the idea. So it's not official that it's happening necessarily, but they've talked about it. And I don't really like this idea. I mean, obviously I love these characters. I love these actors playing these characters. But this just feels like a move of desperation. Of like, hey, things aren't really working out right now. We need to make a couple $1 billion. And it's just like, I don't... unless maybe it's not that. Maybe they just have a really compelling idea for a story that they were just like, ooh, this is such a good idea that we have to make this movie. I just doubt that that's the case. I'm pretty sure it's just because the MCU has kind of fallen off plus L plus ratio. So I mean, I don't know. I like at the end of the day, at best, this would be a Band-Aid, right? Like, let's say this OG Avengers movie gets made and it's amazing and everybody loves it. It's not going to fix the fact that you have to continue forward without them, because it's like, maybe Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson and Robert Downey Jr. come back for this movie. They're not going to stay on board for another 10 years. It's like, you still have to make your new stuff work. So I don't know. Like, as long as they're not like hitching, and I don't think they are, because we'll talk about more stuff later, but as long as they still have a plan of attack of making their other content successful as well, and their other content good, then sure, come in, make $2 billion on an OG Avengers movie. But yeah, still, as long as you still have a plan to build up your other characters. But yeah, at best, this is going to be a Band-Aid. So next story. Well, let's also talk about the bad MCU visual effects and how that has come to be. So it's also coming from Variety. The guillotine fell on Victoria Alonso, who oversaw the studio's physical production, post-production, VFX, and animation. But some internal sources suggest Alonso was a scapegoat. The so-called bad VFX we see was because of half-baked scripts, says one person involved with She-Hulk. That is not Victoria. That is Kevin. And even before Kevin. Those issues should be addressed in pre-production. The timeline is not allowing the Marvel executives to sit with the material. So this is very much like something that I've been saying, that one of the problems that Marvel has is this whole like fix it in post mentality. It's like, oh, something isn't working. Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll just fix it in post. And it's just becoming more and more clear that just doesn't work. If you film something and then you decide you want to do something else, using that same footage and just trying to inject some CGI in there to make it be the thing that you want, it's going to look bad. When you film things and that's going to have CGI in it, you have to film it a specific way, you have to light it a specific way in order for that CGI to look as good as possible. Like, you have to have that plan. And I mean, yeah, I agree, because I remember we talked about the whole Victoria Alonso thing, and I want to say I said this at the time. I'm like, I don't think that you can really blame Victoria Alonso. There's too much content, and she has to make it, and we'll get to this later, in a not long amount of time, in a short amount of time. And she's getting these projects through, but it's not her, or at least it doesn't seem to be like her fault. In fact, it's kind of amazing that she's gotten these projects out at all, considering the deadlines and whatnot. So, yeah, this Variety just very much confirmed my suspicions that the biggest problem with MCU VFX is that the pre-production is not there. Because I mean, it really does feel like that's probably why Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 looks so much better than the other MCU content surrounding it, because I'm pretty sure James Gunn just had full control over that movie, and he went in and he knew what he was going to make, and he shot it the way that it was going to look the best it could. Um, and, when you look at something like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, that's definitely seems that from everything that we've heard, that's a project that had a bunch of middle management and different, like, changing the scripts and all of that, and having to fix things in post and edit things out in post, and that's where you get a movie that just looks like they're standing on the volume, because things weren't shot in a specific way, or things were shot in a specific way, and then you try to fix it in post. Well, it wasn't shot the way that you want it now. It was shot the way it was written before. So I I think, yeah, that's the ultimate reason why I think that the MCU VFX looks bad, and I'm glad that the Variety article has proven me right, because I'm never wrong. Well, that's not true, but we don't need to get into those times. Next up, Blade situation. This is let's just read it. Feige is pulling the plug on scripts and projects that aren't working. Case in point, the Blade reboot. The project has gone through at least 5 writers, 2 directors, and 1 shutdown 6 weeks before production. The story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women, cringe, and filled with life lessons. Blade was relegated to the 4th lead. Feige went back to the drawing board and hired Michael Green, the Oscar-nominated writer of Logan, to start anew. Speculation around town is that the studio is looking to make the film, now slated for 2025, on a budget of less than $100 million. So that's the big news, right? That at some point, Marvel was considering making a Blade movie where Blade isn't the lead. And I know people are going to look at that situation and being like, well, woke, they were going to make it woke. And it's like, no, wokeness isn't even the problem. Like, the problem isn't the gender of the leads. It's just the fact that Blade wouldn't have been the lead. Like, if we had heard that there would have been 3 straight white male leads instead before Blade, that would also be weird. It's just like, it shouldn't be hard to make a Blade movie. I mean, obviously making any movie is hard, but it's like, he runs around and he slashes vampires. I don't even know if I need to learn a life lesson watching a Blade movie. But I mean, hey, they realized that was cringe, and at least they have the screenwriter of Logan working on this, so I guess that's good. I don't even mind them scaling back the budget to like under $100 million. That's good. I don't know that a Blade movie necessarily needs to be that expensive. So I think that's actually kind of promising. So we'll see. Because I will say, well, we're going to talk about a lot of the problems with the MCU, but I think it should also be noted that, as far as we know, they are doing the right things to ameliorate the situation. So in this case, it's like, yes, they were doing that. It's bad, but at least they're not doing it anymore, and they're seemingly heading in the right direction now. And yeah, it's just like, how do you do that when you have Mahershala Ali as your Blade? How do you treat him like that? That's so insane. But anyways. All right, let's talk about that. About how there was an MCU mandate back during the COVID era. It's coming from Variety. The COVID pandemic ushered in a mandate to help boost Disney's stock price. According to the plan, there would never be a lapse in superhero fare, with either a film in theaters or a new television series streaming at any given moment. Kevin's real superpower, his genius, has always been in post-production and getting his hands on movies and making sure that they finish strongly. The source adds, these days, he's spread thin. Marvel's entire VFX battalion, including staffers and vendors, is struggling to keep pace with a never-ending stream of productions. The schedule swap with the Marvels had left the Ant-Man sequel in a squeeze, pushing up its post-production schedule by 4.5 months. Okay, I think I kind of messed up where I was placing these because that definitely relates to the VFX conversation that we were having earlier. So my apologies about that. But yes, this Variety article confirms something that I was suspicious of. Again, I feel like I kind of predicted this. Or I kind of suspected this and I stated this in the past. That, yeah, the main reason why we have all this MCU content is because Disney needed to boost Disney Plus. And this was when Bob Chapek, that's the picture of the guy here, that's when he took over Bob Iger, and he just completely ruined Disney. I mean, my gosh, like he was putting Pixar movies on Disney Plus instead of in theaters. I don't know that you can necessarily blame him for a bunch of other stuff, but I mean, during his reign, we got a bunch of like Disney live action movies that were put straight on Disney Plus. And now that we look at the box office performance of Pixar movies and the box office performance of live action Disney movies, I don't think it's a coincidence that just this insistence on putting content on Disney Plus and cheapening the brands are probably, for the most part, the reasons a lot of these movies aren't working as well as they do. When we look at this MCU mandate, I'm sorry, when there is constantly a Disney Plus, either a Disney Plus show or a Marvel movie in theaters, we're gonna stop getting hyped for it. Like, I remember I really first felt it when I was like in the middle of watching Miss Marvel and Thor: Love and Thunder came out. And I was like, I'm not excited about Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, first of all, the trailers weren't particularly good. But also, I'm currently watching Miss Marvel. I'm currently watching a Marvel thing. No, I'm satisfied. I'm not excited about Thor: Love and Thunder. So, and not to mention that just in general, when you're making this much content, and it says there, and I've said this before, Kevin Feige is spread too thin, and it's like, and that's the thing. I mean, they just mentioned it in the Variety article. Kevin Feige is kind of the secret sauce of Marvel. Like, the MCU is like kind of like a TV show. Kevin Feige is the showrunner. When Kevin Feige doesn't have the time to oversee the projects, that's when you get mixed results. That's when you sometimes get something really good like WandaVision. Sometimes you get something really bad like She-Hulk. It's like Kevin Feige, he has the quality control or whatever. So when you have all this content and it's not consistent and it's never ending, we're gonna get sick of it. We're gonna get jaded. We're gonna stop getting excited for things. So it's like, I don't know, maybe you boosted the stock price of Disney Plus, but where has that left you now? So yeah, again, a lot of this Variety article, to be honest, is just me confirming that I'm right and that I've been right. So yeah, I feel good about myself. All right, let's get to the next part of it. Apparently, Nia DaCosta left the Marvels during post-production. This is coming from Variety again. DaCosta began working on another film while The Marvels was still in post-production. The filmmaker moved to London earlier this year to begin prepping for her Tessa Thompson drama Hedda, I don't know. So apparently this is actually not that big of a deal, because I actually looked it up. People were bringing up that, for example, Steven Spielberg started working on Schindler's List during the production of Jurassic Park. So admittedly, this is a bit outside of my wheelhouse. Like, I obviously don't know what like post-production is like generally on movies in Hollywood, but people are saying that this isn't actually that big of a deal and that she probably wasn't completely, like, she didn't completely abandon the movie probably. And it's like, if Steven Spielberg managed to do post-production on Jurassic Park and then start directing Schindler's List, I mean, those turned out well. So there's kind of a narrative here that Nia DaCosta like abandoned the picture for like nefarious reasons, or because, you know, she wasn't fit for the job or something like that. But I don't think we can quite make that call yet. Maybe we'll watch the movie and it becomes apparent that it's just a mess and it was studio meddled because the director wasn't there to finish the job. I don't know. And it's also one of those things where it's like, wouldn't there be like severe consequences if she were to just leave the movie? I feel like there would be. So maybe this part might be a little overblown. But then again, maybe that Steven Spielberg example is just a severe exception, and this is just not a normal thing that happens. I wouldn't know. So we'll have to wait and see how the movie plays out. All right. And finally, last story of the day, we have some news about Jonathan Majors and whether or not he's going to play Kang. So we'll read this. Jonathan Majors is headed to a high-profile trial in New York later this month on domestic violence charges. The damage to his reputation and the chance he could lose the case has forced Marvel to reconsider its plans to center the next phase of its interlocking slate around Majors' villainous character, Kang the Conqueror. Executives discussed backup plans, including pivoting to another comic book adversary like Doctor Doom. But making any shift would carry its own headaches. Majors was already a big presence in the MCU, and he has been positioned as the franchise's next big thing. A studio source notes that regardless of the actor's legal issues, Marvel already had considered moving away from a Majors-led phase because of the box office performance of Quantumania. So, yeah, basically, the whole Jonathan Majors situation isn't going to blow over quickly. He is still slated to be on court in November. Who knows how long the case is going to go for? So, yeah, Marvel is heavily reconsidering moving away from Kang. Now, at that point, I would say, well, you don't need to move away from Kang because you can just recast the role. I don't think it would be that big of a deal. Like, don't get me wrong, Jonathan Majors is good in the role, but if you have to, another actor could come in and do it. And it's not like the projects that he's been in has been beloved, with the exception of Loki season 2, which I haven't seen yet. But then the article does also mention that they were planning on pivoting away from Kang anyways, because of the failure of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I would also like to add probably because of just the non-enthusiasm around the whole multiverse thing in general. Like I'm kind of sick of multiverse stuff. Don't get me wrong, there are some stuff that utilize it well, like the Spider-Verse movies or Everything Everywhere All at Once, or I'm assuming Invincible season 2 will do it well. But in general, it seems just like a lazy plot device to bring back old characters. So if they were to move away from the multiverse in general, that would be cool. Now, could Doctor Doom be the next big threat in the MCU? Sure. I'm not really too passionate about who exactly it should or shouldn't be. As far as the next big threat of the MCU, Doctor Doom could be a fine replacement. But at the end of the day, whether they stick with Kang and they recast, or they stick with Kang and stick with Jonathan Majors, or pivot to another villain like Doctor Doom, it just does need to be highlighted that none of it matters if the movies aren't good. As long as the movies are good, that's really the most important thing. Like, you could stick with the multiverse, just make better movies. That could absolutely work. You can stick with Kang, make better movies, and it would work. Or pivot to Doctor Doom, make better movies, and it'll work. So at the end of the day, I'm not too passionate about like whether or not Kang sticks around or not, or they pivot to Doctor Doom. Obviously, my opinion on whether or not Jonathan Majors will stay is going to be dependent on the outcome of the trial. So we'll just have to wait on that. All right, let's get into what I've been watching / playing. I started playing Spider-Man 2. It's good. It is more Spider-Man, very much so. But in terms of gameplay, it's enhanced in pretty much every way. Web swinging is a lot more dynamic. I actually turned down the web swinging assist all the way down to 0. So now I'm able to like crash into buildings and and I'm able to swing sloppily. Because one of the things about Spider-Man PS4 was that the game was very handholdy, right? Like, it didn't matter at what height you started swinging from and how far away you were from a building. Whenever you started swinging, you would never hit the ground. Where I'm playing now, it's like if I'm like too close to the ground and the web that I would attach to on the building is like gonna end up being too long, I will crash into the ground and I will not be able to swing. And it's more complicated, the web swinging, the way that I'm playing it, but it's a lot more satisfying to actually get good at. They also added these web wings to the game, which are awesome. And the web swinging is overall just faster. Like with the addition of the web wings, they've also added like these little like web or wind tunnels around the city, so that you can just like web wing and zoom through these wind tunnels to get around faster. They're like these slingshot pads where you can like web against like these two poles and slingshot yourself across the city. And yeah, getting across the city is really fun. Combat is more or less the same. They've added this new parry move, so there are like some attacks from enemies that you can't dodge. You have to parry them. So that's been pretty challenging for me to get used to, just because I'm so used to like my gameplay style. I'm just so used to dodging and stuff, and webbing guys up onto walls and objects. And they're like these new enemies where you can't dodge them, you have to parry them, and you can't even really web them to stuff. So that it's been a lot of fun trying to get used to the new combat system. And yeah, as far as like visuals, there are a surprising amount of glitches in this. Like there have been some missions that I've had to restart and stuff like that. So not quite as polished as I maybe am come to expect from PlayStation. So that's just an interesting thing to note. Hopefully it doesn't become a pattern, but it's not quite as polished as I'd like it to be. I mean, it's still not like a mess or anything, but just an interesting thing to note. PlayStation, we go to you for your quality, so watch out on that. But in terms of other visuals, and not even visuals, but just like set piece moments and stuff like that, it's like, oh yeah, this feels like a next generation game in certain aspects, where I'm like, yeah, it's crazy that we're doing this right now. And I don't want to spoil any of that, but yeah. And then in terms of story, it's good. I like the characters. I like the new characters. Like Harry's in this game now, and you know Miles and Peter. They're both playable, and they're both very much like dual protagonists of the game. So you get some of Miles' story, you get some of Peter's story, and yeah, it's cool. My main problem is that it's very predictable. Like there are some surprises in it and directions the story takes that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but even after those things happen, there are like moments in the game where it gets like very serious and it gets very tense, and I know exactly what's going to happen because I've watched superhero movies before, and I just like I can call the beats as they happen. So it's been a little not quite as strong as I maybe would have wanted it to be, but it's still good. Like I'm still enjoying it. I still really like these characters. I love this version of Peter. Love this version of Miles. Their relationships with each other and the side characters are fun and compelling, and I like it. And then to maybe give another critique as well, the game, I don't even know if it's a critique because I kind of respect it for it. It doubles down on a lot of the stuff that people complained about in the first game. So like, people didn't like the science mini games. Boy howdy, are there science mini games here. People didn't like the spider drone missions. Boy howdy, are there spider drone missions in here. People didn't like the Mary Jane stealth missions. Oh, Mary Jane be stealthing. But to be fair, though all that stuff is brought back, it is better. like that kind of stuff is better than it was in Spider-Man PS4. Like the spider drone missions are more involved than they were in Spider-Man PS4. The Mary Jane stealth missions are actually a lot. I think they're more fun in this one, at least of the ones that I've played. And then there's some other stuff that I didn't love necessarily that I don't necessarily want to spoil, so I won't bring up. But yeah, overall, oh wait, actually, another thing I wanted to say. Surprisingly enough, the DLC from the first Spider-Man, very much important here. If you didn't play the DLC, and for that matter, if you didn't play Spider-Man Miles Morales, they absolutely do pick up on storylines that the DLC and Spider-Man Miles Morales set up. So if you didn't catch up with that stuff, you'll still enjoy the game, don't get me wrong, but you might be like, oh wait, why is this character doing this? Why is this character like that? What happened? Yeah, the game very much expects you to have played the DLC as well as Miles Morales. But again, you'll still be fine. Like you'll enjoy the game plenty. You'll just be confused in certain moments. But yeah, overall, really enjoying it. I just have some gripes with them that are big enough that I can't necessarily come here and say that this is a masterpiece. It's good. It's great even. I'm having a ball of a time. So yeah, there we go. Next up, I watched the FNAF movie, and this is bad. I mean, listen, I would consider myself a fan of FNAF. I've only played like the first 2, 3, maybe 4 games, but I have kept up watching like the game theory videos about FNAF, and so it's like I get FNAF. I get the appeal of it. So, like, you can, like, FNAF fans like to, like, and by the way, the Mario movie fans would do this as well, where they would be like, this movie was made for the fans, and if you're not a fan, you wouldn't get it. But it's like, no, I get it. I gotcha. This is just a bad movie. Bad performances, bad script, really bad dialogue, not scary. It's just a bad horror movie. Like, and the funny thing about it is that it would be one thing if it was actually like the games, in the sense where the story was very vague and it was very much dependent on you being like a sleuth and pausing the movie and analyzing everything in order to figure out the story. It would be one thing if it was like an experience like that. Like, that would actually be kind of interesting. This movie isn't even like that, so I don't even understand why people are saying like, "Oh, this movie's for the fans." If you don't like it, you don't understand the fandom. It's like, it's not supposed to be good. This is for the fans. It's not supposed to have good dialogue or good direction or be scary. It doesn't need to do those things because it's for us, the fans. And it's just like, you guys know that you can have a movie with a bunch of references, and for you to soy out to be like, look, it's Freddy Fazbear, look, it's Chica and Bonnie, like, oh, look, it's the Dream Theory. Like, you guys know that you can have all of that within a well-produced movie. It's not an either-or scenario. You can have it all. So it's like, to be clear, if you disagree with me and you just think it's a good movie, then that's great. I'm not trying to make you dislike the movie. But if you're somebody where you're like, yeah, the movie's not very good, but it was for the fans, it couldn't possibly be good. It's like, no, it could have been. It could have both been for the fans with a bunch of references while being a well-directed, well-written, well-acted movie. It's like, maybe it's okay if you're satisfied with it not being that, if you're okay with it being bad. But don't shit on other people that kind of want to watch a good movie when they go to watch a movie. Like, don't shit on the critics for being like, hey, the movie was bad. It is fair for them to say that. So, I don't know. I made a FNAF movie review. You can go watch that if you want, where I very much say a lot of what I said here. But overall, the FNAF movie's bad, but hey, it's making a lot of money, and the FNAF fans are happy with it, so whatever. And yeah, that's going to be it for this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. Let me know what you think about any and all of these topics in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.